Hey HCAC Youth, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Well, we're on to chapter 12 now, and chapter 12 is a very difficult chapter. It's called The Woman and the Dragon, and there's a change that happens here. But before we dig into this, we need to just talk in general a little bit about the book of Revelation and what it really is. Well, the title Revelation gives it away that it's things that are revealed. And really that's all any prophecy is. It's when God reveals something to a human and then they pass it along. That makes the person a prophet, and the thing is prophecy. It doesn't necessarily have to be a vision of the future or a prediction of the future to be prophecy. Anything that God reveals can be prophecy, even if it's in the past. There's a couple different ways of interpreting the entire book of Revelation, and they all have their merits and they all have their drawbacks. Some people think that the majority of the book refers to things that were contemporary to John, that a lot of it's about the Roman Empire and their oppression of God's people. And some of the imagery certainly fits that, but it doesn't mean that that's all it is. There's this thing called telescoping prophecy. Telescope. It can be both near and far away. Some of the prophecies given in the Old Testament came to pass in days, weeks, months, years. Others had a fuller fulfillment in Christ, hundreds of years, thousands of years later than the initial prophecy was given. That could be the case with Revelation. Just because something looks like the Roman Empire doesn't mean that it doesn't also mean something else in heaven or something else in the future. Now, a little tangent here about time. You might not know this, but I collect pocket watches. Probably a better way to say it is I have a collection of pocket watches. This was my grandfather's, and it's a wind-up pocket watch. Now, there's some issues with it. It needs to be serviced, so it doesn't work. But if it did work, it would work by you pull up on the crown and twist and wind the internal spring. It's a coil, and as you turn this, gears and worm gears and cogs all fit together, and it turns a spring, and that spring winds up and saves mechanical potential energy in the form of a spring. And as it's slowly released, the gears click back and forth, and there's very specialized gears that basically time this spring unwinding. So the spring has energy and it loses that energy, and all these hands are doing is measuring that loss of energy and representing it as time. Here's another watch from my collection. This is actually one of the first pocket watches I ever got. It's one of my favorite. It's kind of strange because it's on the side. It doesn't face this way, it faces this way, and it has a cool leather pouch and a chain to go with it. Battery's dead. It lives in my wooden box with a glass front with all my other pocket watches. I used to carry this a long time ago. So this one works by you put a battery in it that has chemical potential energy, and very similar, it has gears, and this has a quartz crystal in it, and all of that just measures the battery dying, which is kind of sad when you think about it. What about this? This is why I don't really carry a pocket watch anymore. I have my smartphone. You can see what time it was that I was recording this. Now, I'm almost certain that this phone doesn't keep track of time by itself. It probably does for some of the functions, and in that case it's doing the same thing as this, just a little different way with integrated circuits instead of with a quartz crystal. And it's measuring the decay of the battery inside of it. But also, almost positive that the time that's displayed, it's getting it from the network. And the network gets it from the atomic clock in Colorado. That's called the atomic clock because it works by measuring the decay of an atomic element. Again, decay. You have something with a lot of potential energy, losing that energy, and we measure time by how it loses that. That's pretty much how all of our timekeeping works. It's just a simple hourglass. You turn it over. The sand's at the top. It has gravitational potential energy. Drops to the bottom, has kinetic energy, but it loses all of that energy. Just measuring that decay, that death, if you will. Well, God doesn't decay. God doesn't die. God doesn't experience time the way we do. So when we think about God and things that He's revealed to His prophets, we need to be careful because we put our own limited understanding of time onto this book, and that does not work. So just because we think of like things going in a linear fashion, or maybe you're watching this and you're from a country and a people group that thinks more cyclically with time. You know, both have their merits, but neither is a full picture of how God experiences time. Because God's outside of time, really. He's over time. He's the one who came up with the idea of time. So when we read the book of Revelation, we need to be careful not to think of it as just a story that starts with John on the island, and spoiler alert, ends with the new Jerusalem coming down and all evil banished and things are wonderful, and it's just a straight line from beginning to end. It's not really how it is. So when we get into Revelation 12, we notice something. It's not talking about the future. It says, "A great and wondrous sign appeared in heaven." Now, these are the first of 7 signs, or some translations say 7 visions. Now we've had 7 letters to 7 churches, we had 7 seals, we had 7 trumpets, which aren't quite done yet, and now we're into 7 signs. "A great and wondrous sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. His tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that he might devour her child at the moment it was born." That's some strange stuff right there. "She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up to God and up to his throne." Now, rule all the nations with an iron scepter. If you know that prophecy or that description, you know that that's talking about Jesus. So who's this woman? Well, Jesus' mom was Mary, but did Mary stand on the moon clothed in the sun with 12 stars over her head? Well, there's depictions in classical Christian artwork that shows Mary like that. But more than likely, this is talking about all of God's people. The 12 stars indicate the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is either God's people Israel, or God's people Israel, which includes the church grafted in. But if we're going to go with strict time frames, then it's not including the church, because, well, Jesus caused the church to come into existence. The church didn't give birth to Christ. Now, Mary is kind of the representative of all of the tribes of Israel. Sometimes we make Mary out to be this cosmic figure. Sometimes some Christians make Mary out to be this cosmic figure, and we forget that she was a Jew. She was a human. She was part of this Hebrew people group. And she's like the representative of all of them. So yeah, you could say Mary's included in this woman, but this woman is not a one-for-one representative of Mary, and this isn't literally Mary. Okay? So, the dragon, obviously evil here, colored red, representing blood, death, destruction. 7 heads. Oh, something evil with 7. That can't be good. 10 horns and 7 crowns. So this dragon has all of the authority of all of the nations. So this dragon can basically do almost anything at once. Very, very powerful. Almost everything at once. Can't snatch up the child. God doesn't allow that. Okay, so now on to verse 6. The woman fled into the desert to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. What do we know about 1,260 days? 3.5 years. What do we know about 3.5? Not forever. So only for a time is this woman gonna hide. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the world astray. He was hurled to earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, let's pause here for a minute. So we see who this dragon really is. No surprises here. It's the devil or Satan. Now, Satan is a title. The Satan, or the accuser. We'll see that further in this book. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. Well, a little more confusing. The woman, clothed in the sun, standing on the moon, the 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of Israel. But here, the stars that we read with the dragon and his tail sweeps them out of the sky, those stars represent fallen angels, angels that follow Satan in the war. So, in the same passage, we have stars that mean different things, but they all refer to people groups or groups of beings. So it's not that disjunct. We need to be careful with the Bible that we don't pick it apart so much that we have things meaning different things in the same verses. But I think we're okay here saying that they're both groups of beings. Okay, now back to verse 10. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come the salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser, the Satan, of our brothers, or some say our comrades, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short. So, you ever hear somebody give advice about a wounded animal, and if you can help it, you have to be really careful. Or you ever have a friend that when they know they're wrong, and you confront them, you kind of have them backed into a corner in an argument, it gets ugly real fast. And that's what's happening here with Satan. He knows he's beaten. He knows he's done. He's not stupid. I mean, he's stupid for disobeying God and rebelling against him, but he knows he's not going to win. But instead of giving up, he tries to take as many people out with him as he can. So that's why he's saying, woe to the people on earth. He's going to cause some serious problems. When the dragon saw that he had been hurled down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Okay, so now Satan is after God's people. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the desert, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time out of the serpent's reach. Okay. Old Testament prophecies about being raised up on the wings of eagles being fulfilled here. Time, times, so 1 time, 2 more times, 1, 2 more, and then a half. 3.5. Here we go again, not forever. So for 3.5 times out of the serpent's reach, or times most likely meant 12 months, a full lunar year, so 3.5 years again. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with a torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of its mouth. So, look, God ordained that the church is going to be safe during this time. It's going to be hard, but they're going to be safe. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who obey God's commands and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So let's read this again just so we don't miss it. These are the offspring of the woman, those who obey God's commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus. That's where we're going to end our reading for now for this week. So I want you to think about a time that you faced persecution at some level for your faith. Maybe a friend made fun of you. Maybe a teacher stood up in class and said that there is no God, that all religions are equal, that maybe you had a coach or something not understand why you can't make it to Sunday morning practices. These are minor things, but they're a big deal in our lives. Now, I know some of you go to Christian schools, and maybe this doesn't apply to you the same way as to those in public schools. But at some point in your life, somebody's gonna persecute you. It's a harsh word, but you know, somebody's gonna treat you badly because of your faith. It's happened to me. I'm sure it'll happen to you. And it happens to our brothers and sisters in other countries pretty severely. And this week I want you to think about those times and how you've responded in the past, how you could respond better in the future if that happens, that you would be persecuted for your faith in the future. Think about people you know in other countries that are being persecuted. And I want you to pray this week for the persecuted church. I can share some resources with you Friday night. All right. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, this week we have a game night. Friday night, we have a youth group. Come ready to discuss chapter 12 with questions. Come already thinking about a time that maybe you faced some persecution for your faith. No matter how small and trivial it seems, I want you to think about and talk about this. And also, please let me know if you're interested in helping me make some videos. I leave my bloopers in. Let me know if you're interested in helping me make some videos showing the crafts for our VBS. So because we're not going to have VBS in person. We need some help to make videos to show how to make the crafts, and then we'll send the crafts in the goodie bags to the families that have kids attending VBS through Zoom, and then they can make the crafts of their own time during the day. And it would be great help to see you guys making the crafts and giving some instructions to that. So let me know. I'll ask again tomorrow night and Friday night. We need to get on this sooner than later. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Wash your dirty hands. Wear a mask if you're gonna go outside. And ring that bell.